These are 8 of John Wayne's greatest on-screen brawls, spanning 2 decades from the legendary 9-minute Donnybrook in The Quiet Man to the gut-wrenching death scene in The Cowboys. Across these films, you'll watch the Duke evolve from a 44-year-old at peak physical power to a 64-year-old with one lung who still insisted on doing his own stunts, and the fights themselves grew darker and more violent right alongside the Western genre. Wayne claimed he'd fought 500 on-screen battles by 1967, but these 8 stand apart from all the rest. Some became the gold standard for how movie fights should look, others inspired entire films, one earned an actor decades of death threats, and one was the first and only time bullet squibs were ever placed on Wayne's body. Let's count them down chronologically and see how the Duke's fists helped define American cinema. The Wings of Eagles. 5 years later, Wayne reunited with Ford for a very different kind of fight movie that tells the true story of Commander Frank Spig Weed, a Navy aviation pioneer. Filming took place in the summer of 1956 when Wayne was 49, coming off what many consider his finest performance in The Searchers. 3 Army versus Navy ensemble brawls erupt in the film's first 40 minutes, which is a remarkable concentration of slapstick violence. Wayne and his Navy team crash the Army's premature victory celebration for upcoming aviation races, and after excessively polite verbal sparring with Army Captain Hazard, played by Kenneth Tobey, the scene explodes into a cake-flinging punch-up that escalates into a full riot with props that include a large celebration cake and a swimming pool. Revenge comes after the Navy wins the seaplane race when the Army retaliates by invading their celebration party, triggering a brawl that mirrors the first, and a third fight follows the same pattern. These fights marked the first time Wayne directly participated in Ford's knockabout comedy routines, since previously such scenes were delegated to supporting characters. 13 credited stunt performers worked on the production, which ran from July 30th to September 15th, 1956 for a total of 47 shooting days. Locations included MGM Studios in Culver City and Naval Air Station Pensacola, Florida, where Ford insisted real Navy personnel be paid union extra wages despite Navy objections. Tonal inconsistency became the film's primary controversy as critics attacked the mix of slapstick brawling with the serious drama of Weed's paralysis and family breakdown. One critic called the fights dreadful, poorly blocked Donnybrooks, and the budget of $2.644 million resulted in only $2.3 million domestic and $1.35 million international, netting just $804,000 profit according to MGM's records. Ford later acknowledged, "I didn't want to do that picture because Spig was a great pal of mine, but I didn't want anybody else to make it." Wayne removed his toupee on screen for the first time to portray the aging, balding Weed. That was unprecedented for a major star at the time. North to Alaska. Wayne needed a hit by 1960 after pouring millions into the Alamo, and North to Alaska delivered exactly what he needed with a $10 million worldwide gross. Director Henry Hathaway gets the credit with Wayne co-directing uncredited, and the result was pure entertainment. Big Sam McCord becomes Wayne's character, with con man Frankie Cannon played by the great Ernie Kovacs serving as his primary opponent, and 3 escalating brawl sequences drive the action forward. Within the first 10 minutes, the opening saloon brawl erupts with everyone punching everyone while tables and chairs get destroyed and beer barrels gush everywhere. And while chaos unfolds, Kovacs's con man steals money from an abandoned poker table only to have it stolen by a dog. An automatic music machine plays merrily throughout. Mining Camp Water becomes the setting for the second brawl, where Wayne and Stuart Granger fight off claim jumpers while a busted sluice pours water over everyone. Variety described the highlight as a mistaken piece of strategy in which star John Wayne unleashes a rail wagon down a steep incline at his foes but forgets to get out of it himself. And that's when the third fight happens, the one everyone remembers. Streets of Nome turn into a mud pit for the climactic brawl featuring a Salvation Army band breaking into When the Saints Go Marching In, head-butting goats joining the chaos, a seal watching the fight, cartoonish punch sound effects, and someone nearly drowning in a mud puddle. And then comes the most famous moment when Kovacs hits Wayne and he stumbles backward over a wagon tongue, his hat flies off, and takes his toupee with it, briefly revealing his bald crown. This appears in the finished film, with Wayne at 53 during filming from May to August 1960. Biographer Diana Rico called the mud fight the most physically demanding work of Ernie Kovacs's career, and tragedy struck when Kovacs died in a car accident just over a year later. Singer Johnny Horton, who performed the hit title song, died in a traffic collision on November 5, 1960, just 5 days before the film's release. Point Mugu in California and some locations in Canada served as filming locations, and despite the title, no filming took place in Alaska. Production famously started without a finished screenplay, which led Wayne to complain to studio executives. "I went to see Buddy Adler and Skouras and told them we didn't even have a finished script." Variety's 1960 review praised the brawls as classics of the cinematic art of make-believe pugilistics, and the commercial success directly led to the making of McClintock in 1963, which featured a similarly famous mud fight. TCM noted the film partly shaped the later phase of Wayne's career, helping him reinvent himself as a cowboy with a comic touch and pointing the way to true grit. Donovan's Reef. And if those legendary brawls have you hooked, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we're about to get to John Wayne's most personal fight scene, the one where he throws punches at his own son. A special place in Wayne history belongs to Donovan's Reef as the last John Ford and John Wayne collaboration, ending a partnership that spanned 35 years and 20-plus pictures. Kauai, Hawaii became the filming location from July to September 1962 when Wayne was 55 years old. Michael Patrick Gunn's Donovan becomes Wayne's character, with Thomas Aloysius Boats Gilhooly, played by Lee Marvin, serving as his opponent, and these two men share the same birthday of December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. 21 years of tradition means they've had a knockdown, drag-out fistfight every birthday, and even they have forgotten why it started. Pure cinema magic describes the annual birthday brawl, which starts when Gilhooly arrives by literally jumping ship from a freighter and swimming ashore. Locals eagerly gather outside Donovan's bar while Wayne offers his hand in peace. Marvin seems to accept, then catches him off guard and takes the first swing, and the brawl tears up the entire bar. A beloved comedic beat happens when Gilhooly picks up a glass bottle to throw. Donovan yells, "Not the brandy, you dope." Gilhooly apologizes and puts it down and throws a beer bottle instead, and the fight ends with both men in a fish pond outside the bar. But here's what audiences didn't know at the time. Wayne underestimated a Marvin uppercut, crashed through a table and fell, and Ford decided to leave the take in the film rather than reshoot it. That's a real Wayne mistake you're watching on screen. Later in the film comes a second brawl where Donovan and Gilhooly, who have been fighting each other all movie, team up to take on a barroom full of Australian sailors in a massive free-for-all. Patrick Wayne, the Duke's real-life son, plays the Australian Shore Patrol officer who breaks up the fight. Behind-the-scenes drama ran deep as Ford learned upon arriving in Hawaii that Paramount had pulled financial backing, forcing him to self-finance much of the production. Ford's health was deteriorating. While some sources claim Wayne directed portions of the film, and Lee Marvin was reportedly constantly hung over during shooting. Ford pitched the film to Marvin with a simple question. "Don't you want your kids to be brown as berries? Don't you want to spend 8 weeks in Hawaii this summer? Then do the picture." Marvin took the role without seeing a script. $6.6 million in North American gross and $3.3 million in U.S. theatrical rentals made it the 24th highest grossing film of 1963. Andrew Saris of The Village Voice called it a beautiful example of cinematic art, and the film has gained a cult following as a Christmas movie since it's set around December 7th and Christmas, with scholars increasingly recognizing it as more than a throwaway vacation project, calling it a bittersweet elegy for days gone by. The War Wagon. Milestone status belongs to the War Wagon, because according to Wayne himself, the saloon fight in this film was his 500th on-screen fight, 500 fights over 3 decades of movie making. Filming took place from September to December 1966 when Wayne was 59, just 2 years after losing his entire left lung and several ribs to cancer surgery. Kirk Douglas played Lomax as Wayne's co-star, with Howard Keel appearing as Levi Walking Bear. A massive, approximately 50-man bar fight erupts in the first act, when Wayne's character Todd Jackson enters a saloon looking for Lomax, and before they can face off, Levi deliberately starts a fight with Todd as a diversion to save him from the villain's men. Chaos follows as Levi assaults attackers with a piano. The bartender smashes a bottle over Levi's head. Levi is completely unfazed and turns around and floors the bartender with a single punch, while Lomax watches nonchalantly but knocks out one of the villain's men trying to shoot Ta. After exiting the saloon, Ta kicks the saloon door into the sheriff's face. A famous exchange follows after Ta and Lomax gun down 2 men in the street. Lomax says mine hit the ground first, and Ta Jackson responds mine was taller. Sierra de Organos National Park in Durango, Mexico, served as filming locations over 12 weeks starting September 19, 1966. $300,000 plus 10% of the gross went to Kirk Douglas, which meant director Burt Kennedy had to give up half his own salary to afford him. Douglas wore huge lifts during his first scene with Wayne, to match Wayne's towering 6'4" height, and here's a great story about the political clash on set. Douglas arrived late one day because he was shooting an endorsement for Democratic California Governor Pat Brown. Wayne was furious and deliberately showed up late the next day after shooting a spot for Republican candidate Ronald Reagan, and despite their political divide, Douglas called Wayne one of the most professional actors I've ever worked with, and noted they agreed to never discuss politics. Debuting at number 1, the film earned $9.563 million in domestic rentals according to Variety. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars and called it that comparative rarity. A Western filmed with quiet good humor, and the film currently holds 90% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. 200 starring roles. That's what the LA Times reported Chisum represented in January 1970, when Wayne was 62 during filming from October to December 1969. And this was his first film after winning his only Academy Award for True Grit. News of his Oscar nomination reached him while on the Chisum set. Cattle Baron John Simpson, Chisum becomes Wayne's character, with Lawrence Murphy, played by Forrest Tucker, serving as his opponent, and the final fight ranks among Wayne's most physically ambitious late-career sequences. Chisum and his men ride into town during the Lincoln County War climax, driving Murphy's own cattle before them to smash through barricades. And still on horseback, Chisum then crashes through a window into Murphy's office in a spectacular stunt moment. Inside Murphy's office, Chisum and Murphy engage in a brutal fistfight that moves up the staircase and out onto a balcony, and both men then fall together from the balcony to the street below, where Murphy is impaled on a decorative bull's horn in a dramatically ironic death. But here's the problem that Wayne hated. His stunt double was so obvious in the final fight that it became one of the most widely discussed aspects of the film among fans, with multiple errors visible in the finished film, including the crash mat for the balcony, fall poorly concealed in the overhead shot, Forrest Tucker's pants visibly splitting during the fight, and Wayne's double clearly being a different person in several shots. Cosmetic surgery just 1 month before shooting began helped mask Wayne's age, but he still relied on a hairpiece and oxygen mask between takes. Durango, Mexico and Santa Fe, New Mexico served as filming locations, and the Chisum Ranch house set was later reused as the McCandles Ranch in Big Jake the following year. $6 million in domestic rentals made it the 19th highest-grossing film of 1970, and President Richard Nixon publicly endorsed the film at an August 1970 press conference, saying, "I saw Chisum with John Wayne. It was a very good Western. Perhaps one of the reasons Westerns survive is that the good guys come out ahead." And here's the biggest irony. The climactic fight between Chisum and Murphy never happened in real life, as the real Murphy was dying of bowel cancer during the Lincoln County War and was in Santa Fe for most of the conflict. Both the real Chisum and Murphy died in bed shortly after the events depicted. Big Jake. May 26, 1971 marks the release date of Big Jake, which also happened to be John Wayne's 64th birthday. Filming took place from October to December 1970, when he was 63, making this his last collaboration with Maureen O'Hara. Multiple fight sequences fill the film, but one stands above the rest, as the famous Daddy fist fight, made even more special by the fact that Wayne's real-life son Patrick Wayne plays James McCandles. Patrick's character sarcastically calls Jake Daddy in the scene, and Wayne's response is cinema gold. "Well, son, since you don't have any respect for your elders, it's time somebody taught you some respect for your betters." James winds up to throw a punch, but Jake hits him first, knocking him into a mud puddle. Then Wayne delivers the immortal line, "You can call me Dad, you can call me Father, you can call me Jacob, and you can call me Jake, you can call me a dirty old son of a bitch, but if you ever call me Daddy again, I'll finish this fight." A real father punching his real son creates a meta moment that resonates decades later, and at a 50th anniversary screening, an audience member asked Patrick if he called the Duke Daddy at home. Patrick responded, "You know, all my life I called him Daddy." Additional fight sequences include a saloon bully fight, a bathhouse kill where Jake fires a hidden shotgun through a shower door, and an extended final fort battle where Jake runs out of bullets and kills the machete-wielding villain with a pitchfork in the stables. That's a notably physical moment for a 63-year-old with one lung. Richard Boone, who played the main villain, revealed Wayne's physical reality with brutal honesty. About the only thing Duke couldn't do was run. He didn't have the stamina anymore. His biggest problem was breathing. He always had an oxygen tank nearby, and he used it often, but he never wanted his public to know. George Sherman's health problems forced Wayne to step in as director on multiple days, but Wayne insisted Sherman receive sole directing credit. Durango and Zacatecas, Mexico became the filming locations, and Wayne's youngest son, Ethan Wayne, then approximately 8 years old, made his credited film debut as Little Jake. $7.5 million in U.S. gross came from the finished film, but contemporary critics were shocked by the violence. Gene Siskel gave it 2 out of 4 stars, calling violence the most obvious excess, and this is unusual for a John Wayne film. The Quiet Man, 1952. The fight that changed everything, and many consider it the greatest fistfight in cinema history. Director John Ford's The Quiet Man stars Wayne as Sean Thornton, a retired boxer who killed a man in the ring and fled to Ireland to escape his past. Squire Red Will Danaher becomes his opponent, played by Victor McLaglen, who wasn't just an actor but a real-life professional boxer who had fought heavyweight champion Jack Johnson in a 6-round exhibition bout back in 1909. 9 minutes of screen time. That's how long the climactic brawl lasts, making it one of the longest fight sequences in cinema history at the time. And what makes this fight truly unique is that it never stays in one place. Sean drags his wife Mary Kate 5 miles from the train station to the Danaher farm. The disputed 350-pound dowry gets thrown into a furnace and burned, and a humiliated Will throws the first punch. What follows is like nothing audiences had seen before, as the combatants brawl across the entire Irish countryside through farms, and into a river, and across fields, and through haystacks, and ultimately into Cohan's bar. The whole village follows the fight like a traveling carnival, growing in number as they go, and in one beloved moment Francis Ford, the director's real-life brother, plays an old man who literally rises from his deathbed just to watch. Barry Fitzgerald's character, McAleen, fires pistol shots to maintain order while the fighters briefly agree to Marquess of Queensberry rules, then immediately abandon them. Cohan's bar becomes the final battleground. After sharing a drink, Will throws a beer in Sean's face. Sean delivers a knockout punch that sends Will crashing through the bar doors into the street, and the reconciled brothers-in-law stagger home arm in arm for supper. Ford's psychological manipulation of McLaglen is one of Hollywood's most famous directing stories, and here's how it went down. The evening before shooting, Ford made McLaglen rehearse the dowry scene, then in front of McLaglen's own son cursed him for a lousy performance and told him the next day's filming would be useless. McLaglen arrived on set the next morning raging and primed for the fight, which was exactly the performance Ford wanted. But here's the best part of the production story. Republic Pictures demanded the film run under 2 hours, so Ford screened it for executives and stopped it at exactly 120 minutes, right as the fight was about to begin. His words to Republic head Herbert Yates were simple: "I couldn't figure out how to cut 9 minutes without ruining it, so I figured what the hell, I just cut out the fight and got it down to 120 minutes. The executives immediately relented, and that 9-minute brawl stayed in the film. Filming began June 7, 1951 in Cong, County Mayo, Ireland, and the finished picture earned $3.8 million in its first year, making it a top 10 hit of 1952. 2 Oscars came home, including Best Director for Ford, with 7 total nominations including Best Picture, and Wayne reportedly called The Quiet Man his favorite film. John Carpenter directly confirmed The Quiet Man inspired the iconic 5.5-minute alley fight in They Live, even having Roddy Piper watch the film in preparation. Preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry came in 2013, and today a statue of Wayne and Maureen O'Hara stands in the village of Cong. The Cowboys. And now we come to the fight that audiences never forgot. The fight that earned one actor decades of death threats. The fight that was the first and only time bullet squibs were ever placed on Wayne's body. Release came January 13, 1972 for The Cowboys, featuring what may be Wayne's most shocking screen moment. 64 years old during filming in 1971, Wayne plays aging Montana rancher Will Anderson with Asa Watts, also called Long Hair and played by Bruce Dern, serving as his opponent. A night camp becomes the setting for the fight in the final third of the film, after Watts and his rustlers have surrounded Anderson's camp, delivering a battered boy as a warning. With his men disarmed, Anderson challenges the younger Watts, claiming even on his worst day he could beat the hell out of him. Wayne sucker punches Dern twice to start the brawl. One of Dern's cronies knocks Wayne down from behind. Dern sportingly waits for him to get up, then punches him down again, and Wayne catches Dern with a left to the face. Trading blows continues until Wayne prevails decisively, at one point smashing Dern's head repeatedly against a tree trunk. And that's when the moment happens that made audiences gasp. As the unarmed Anderson turns his back and walks away from the beaten Watts, Dern's character shoots Anderson 5 times in both arms, his right leg, and twice in the torso. Anderson does not die immediately but lingers through the night, delivering final words to the boys about how proud he is of them. First time in his entire career. That's what it was for bullet squibs to be placed on Wayne's body, and Dern confirmed. He had never even had a bullet squib put on him before. This was the first time he actually had a squib put on him, where it was going to be close to his skin. 8:15 a.m. the morning of the death scene found Wayne arriving on set reeking of Wild Turkey 101 bourbon and nervously whispering to Dern, "Is it gonna hurt?" Warning came before filming when Wayne told Dern, "When this picture comes out, and audiences see you kill me, they're going to hate you for this. Dern's legendary response cut through the tension. Maybe, but in Berkeley I'm a goddamn hero, referencing anti-Vietnam War sentiment. Wayne also told Dern to publicly antagonize him on set 24 hours a day, so the child actors would be genuinely terrified of the villain, saying, "I want these little kids to be absolutely terrified of you." Director Mark Rydell had initially despised Wayne's politics and wanted George C. Scott for the role, calling Wayne the exact opposite of all my ideals, very right-wing, one of the founders of the Blacklist. But upon meeting Wayne, he was completely seduced when Wayne politely said, "I'd really appreciate it if you gave me the chance to play this part, sir." Agreement came to never talk about politics and just talk art, and Rydell later said, "He was fabulous, the first guy on the set every morning, and the last guy to leave at night. This man I had loathed. I learned a lot from him about determination and commitment." Death threats and hate mail reached Bruce Dern for years after the film's release, and angry fans still confront him decades later. Typecasting as a villain followed for much of the 1970s, though the role paradoxically raised his profile, leading to Oscar-nominated performances in Coming Home and Nebraska. His autobiography puts it simply, "The only time I've ever been in a theater watching a film I was in where I heard an audience gasp, they actually gasped." $7.5 million domestically came from a $6 million budget. The film currently holds 80% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and it won the Bronze Wrangler for Best Theatrical Motion Picture. From the green fields of Ireland in 1952 to a dark campsite in Montana in 1972, these 8 fights tell the complete story of Hollywood's greatest screen brawler. Peak power defined Wayne at 44 in The Quiet Man as a strapping leading man throwing punches for 9 straight minutes in what remains the gold standard for cinema fistfights. But by Chisum at 62, obvious stunt doubles and oxygen masks between takes became necessary after losing his left lung to cancer. 64 years old in the Cowboys, and Wayne still insisted on physical commitment by taking his first ever bullet squibs and trading real blows with Bruce Dern. Funnier and messier fights emerged through North to Alaska and Donovan's Reef. Then darker and more violent sequences appeared in the War Wagon, Chisum and Big Jake, mirroring how the Western genre itself evolved. 500 on-screen fights across 3 decades, punching his real son, getting shot for the first and only time, dying on screen when he almost never died. John Ford's influence runs through 5 of these 8 films, establishing the template that fights should be traveling comic events involving entire communities. Direct inspiration from The Quiet Man created John Carpenter's They Live Alley Brawl, while North to Alaska's mud fight directly spawned McClintock, and the Cowboys' death scene remains so shocking that Bruce Dern still fields angry reactions more than 50 years later. These weren't just fight scenes, but Wayne fighting against his opponents and against his own aging body, adding genuine poignancy to scenes that were once pure fun. From the man who rose from his deathbed just to watch Wayne and McLaglen brawl, to the audience members who gasped when Dern shot Wayne in the back, these fights created moments that audiences never forgot. If you loved learning about these legendary brawls, do me a favor and hit that like button, drop a comment telling me which fight is your favorite, and subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into classic Hollywood, because your support keeps this channel going. 500 punches across his career, but these 8 fights prove that sometimes quality beats quantity, and sometimes the greatest warrior is the one who keeps fighting long after everyone expects him to quit.